Okay, I'm going to show you a little bit about how I have created a few custom plugins for my Blender scenes to automatically create PBR textures and to integrate in some AI features directly into Blender. And I'm going to show you how to do that yourself. So the first plugin that I created is a PBR texture generator, and it's pretty simple in how it works. I generated several different PBR textures based on a single image that I took from my phone. And you can see these here. And the plugin is very simple. All you have to do is go, and I created these using Claude. And so all you have to do is go into Preferences and select add-ons and install from disk. And then in wherever you save your Blender plugins, there's 2 Python files right here. Claude is extremely good at writing Python code for Blender. And that's how both of these were made. So I'm just going to select an image here. Let's say this like dark wood. I already have a wood texture, so I'm going to name it wood 2. There's a couple of material settings you can do here, but these can also be changed later on. You also set an output directory, and we can just hit generate PBR texture. And just give it a second. And it successfully created the texture maps. So now what I also added was a way to automatically apply this and create a material for you. So we just have a default cube here, and I'm going to click on create PBR material. And it's going to set up the shader graph for you with ambient occlusion, your normal maps, and your displacement maps all set up. The only thing you have to do is go in here to your material properties and change in under settings, change it from displacement to displacement and bump. Then the way displacement works in Eevee, you have to subdivide the surface a bunch. And you can get your displacements working. You can also turn it down the specular, turn it up, depending on the look that you're going for. And yeah, it's a quick and dirty way to very fast make PBR materials from anything. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to scale this a little bit. Kind of make like a wooden plank kind of shape. And then from there, I'm going to apply scale. And then I'm going to go into edit mode and cube project. Yep. And there you go. From here, as you can see, it looks a little weird, but you can dial in your displacement settings, and usually being very subtle with it is the way to go. 8.05. Yeah. You can also come up here and fix your normal maps and your mid-level. I don't use displacement maps all the time, but it's a quick way to make some interesting looking textures. Let's see if we make it, dial it in. Just play around with it, see what you can get. Yeah. Maybe do negative. Negative 0.205. So you kind of want these spots to be the thing you can do. Select all these. If you have a node regular add-on, hit Control T. That'll map all the maps, and you can change their scale and get some weird looking looks as well. There you go. So let's do another one. So we got wood. Let's add in another one. Select a different texture. Let's see. This one's just a wall texture. It's all going to save them to this directory. So I already have a wall material, so I'm going to do wall 2. And I'm going to hit generate. And this is all working through Blender's Python API. There's no AI component to this at all. There's no having to go to another program, and it saves out all the maps for you. Let's just copy this, copy, paste, and we're just going to create the PBR material. And now we can look at it. One thing I do find about some issues with these is that it feels like it kind of puts on the normals or the bump. We just go in here and do bump and displacement. It kind of puts the bump a little strange. I feel like you have to turn it down a lot from its default values and try to hone it in. Let's see. And then the same thing with the displacement. There you go. All right, let's try a different one. Okay. We got more. Let's try something weird. Let's do this side of a building. Okay, so building side. All right, let's try to generate. And or duplicate this, scale it up. I'm going to do object, apply, scale. And then we'll go in there. So while it did create the maps, it looks a little strange. Get a little bit of displacement in there. Let's turn the specular off. Maybe just a little bit of spec in that. And then what we could do with this is, with each one of these, you can just go in and add a color ramp. So if you think, let's say the roughness is a little too spicy, throw in a color ramp and knock it back a little bit. You know. And then, of course, you know, you wouldn't really want to use that, like, you know, on that model. You'd probably make a building and then. Let's try another one. What do we got here? I have some brick textures. There's some here's a wall. sci-fi wall. Let's try that. Let's try the sci-fi wall. Okay, so this is like a sci-fi wall. All right. Generate. The way I used to do this is I would go into ChatGPT and ask for PBR materials. And while that does work, it's a lot of back and forth of getting the right look and having the right, importing in the photos, setting up the node graphs. This is just way, way simpler. Which helps. Another thing we could do is we can add a color ramp to this. Oops. Add a color ramp to this, color and a factor. And we can kind of control the ambient occlusion. So this is just an AI generated image of a sci-fi corridor kind of door. And we need to Q project, get the right sizing for it. But yeah, and it's kind of interesting. Turn the specular down a little bit. Only want some. And it doesn't seem like the displacement gave me exactly what I wanted, but that's okay. Can kind of this. If I switch it to world space, does that help? No. We do negatives. This is really what I would like is for these to be popped out. We can come in here and look at our maps. This is our height map. So what we do with that is if it's giving us this result, add a good old color ramp. Bam, right there. And what we could do is we can kind of control a little bit more about how it's popping out. How that displacement works. Of course, it's always good to have a subdivision surface modifier applied before you do this. And really crank that up. And now we're kind of getting more of a result that we're looking for. And just bam, quick and dirty. I wouldn't say this would be good for close-ups. However, I would say that this would be good for maybe like a background prop, or if you're making an entire scene very quickly. Let's turn off the sun and see how it looks at night. Turn that down. And then we have our white light. Turn that up. Oh, it's inside. And then there you go. Turn up the power. Yeah. Super interesting. Quick, easy, very quick, easy, kind of dirty. Let's add another one. Let's do, so we have here, I have a image of a fictional planet, kind of like Mars. To my Mars material. To have it create the maps. Give it a second. Do its thing. going to generate the images. It's then going to save them to output directory. Could take longer for higher resolution textures. A lot of these other textures are 2K. I think this is a 4K image, so it's taking a little bit longer to process. Okay. Since it's a Mars, I'm just gonna copy this sphere, which I already have displacement on. Go turn up the environment lighting again. All right, and we're gonna go ahead and create that PBR. Wow, that's pretty cool. We have a few issues. What we're going to do is we're going to go into edit mode. We're going to sphere project, and that should fix any sort of overlap that we had. It's a seam here, but I'm just face the planet to where you don't see the seam. Okay. We're going to go into our material settings, go down to displacement, switch to displacement and bump. This is because right now we're in EV, and you have to set it to displacement and bump. Get that to work correctly. And then we can kind of play around, kind of mess with the displacement a little bit, and really kind of get that look of there's like valleys and mountains and yeah. For this also, planets sort of reflect light from the sun, so a little bit of emission helps. And so now we can let's go ahead and set the origin to the geometry and scale that up. That way to it there. Right. That's pretty cool. Nice. All right. So now you got a quick PBR planet texture. Nice. Here's some other textures I made when I was experimenting with this. Kind of works a little better if you have the sunlight on. There we go. As well as this ground texture, this concrete ground texture as well. So yeah, I'm going to put this in the, I'm going to put in the description, I'm going to put the plugin. You can download it. Feel free to change it to whatever you like. It's a Python file. If you upload that Python file at Claude and ask for specific features or things that you would want to see in your PBR texture generator, just, ask for it and then let me know. And we can kind of build this texture generation together and start building out more features. One thing I would really like to see added would be maps for specular, potentially subsurface, if you're doing more of like skin textures. This texture right here definitely benefit for some subsurface. And I'm not exactly sure how to get that set up on an EV. But yeah, it's just it's not really meant to replace the traditional texturing pipeline in a program like Substance. Of course, you can get more control if you use a program like Materialize. However, just the simplicity of just putting in an image, generating the textures, and then creating a PBR material from that, it's really powerful and it's very awesome if you have a lot of stuff you need to texture quickly. Or the main thing that I use this for is I'll just take a photo of something on my phone, create a quick PBR texture. And since it has direct integration into Blender and it sets up the node graph for you, it's very fast and very efficient at creating these. And you don't have to waste money on a ChatGPT subscription in order to create your normal maps. This is a much better and much cleaner way to do something like this. The next plugin I'd like to talk about is in the scripting tab. So in here, I have a integration with Claude. And basically what you can do is Claude will generate you Python scripts for something that you would need in Blender specifically. So an example would be use Blender's Python API to create a, let's say 36 cameras, all pointing to the origin of the scene. Create an empty on that origin that is the camera focal point and an object constraint for the constraint for the cameras so that they are always oriented towards the empty at the origin. And that's probably too long of a prompt. This is just an example, but remember that these are, the shorter you can make these, the less tokens you'll use, and so that'll be better. And then we just sort of send this to Claude. It's gonna wait. So we're just gonna wait for it to generate the response, to start generating the script. And you can ask it about specific things in Blender. I mean, you could also just have a window open where you have Claude and you can type in any of your questions. However, as you'll see in a minute, this is a pretty powerful way to not have to deal with some of the files that you'd have to download or the copy and paste that you'd have to do. So we're just waiting for Claude's response, and we should get a response has been received from Claude here in the bottom left corner. And so the response should show up in a few seconds, depending on how long the script is. You can set a max amount of tokens. You can set a time. Oh, here's the script. Great. So we're just going to insert the code. That's going to insert all the code that Claude generated. And then we're going to hit play. And what you can see here is that it did exactly what we asked it for. And all these cameras are going to follow this empty on the origin point. So that's pretty cool. Something like this would take a long time to set up in Blender manually. Having them all be in the correct position at the right angles. You'd also probably want to use this if you're going to render out a bunch of Gaussian splats from images, or from Gaussian splats from models that you have. You can set the amount of cameras. So if you want higher than 36, you can just ask Claude for more. It's a very powerful integration. Let's go ahead and Control-Z back to our scene. Great. Now I'm going to clear the conversation. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to say, now this is another one. Use Blender's Python API to create a, let's see, what is it called? We can get a circular temple scene, make columns arranged around a central fountain, create steps leading into the fountain, and generate just, great. All right, so let's see what happens with that. Send that to Claude, and we'll test that out. You can choose your model. Some of these models are faster or slower. You can choose your timeout. So if you get timeout errors, you can increase this timeout request. We can turn on or off, include script context. So, if you need the context of the conversation. And of course, this is just the first time I've gotten this integration to work. You do need an API key from Anthropic. So just go into your settings and copy and paste your API key. You can insert this code. Let's see what it did. There you go. So now we kind of have like this very basic fountain scene set up. But again, setting up a radial array would probably be better in the long run, because then you can have parameters that you can then set up. But what's interesting is it also did some lighting for us as well. So it kind of has an area light here and a sun lamp that it created, as well as a camera, which is really cool. And of course, you can get more specific with the details of that. From there, I would say what you could do is you could select all the different parts. And what we can do is we can assign it material. Subdom. No, this is assign. Yeah, so you can start assigning materials and start building out a basic scene. It's probably to me. Pretty cool. Yeah. So those are the two plugins that I created using Claude. I would say just start experimenting with different things that you can create. Obviously, the more time you put into something, the better it's going to be. But if you could do more with less, this could be a great starting point for different scenes. I'm not sure why I added a bunch of eggs. That's a little strange. I would say some things to try out would be also creating collections of parts, and asking Claude to scatter those in logical ways. Like if you had a set of walls, if you ask Claude to use those walls in the scene as it's generating, that's another thing that you could do. You could ask to use specific materials. So when you create your scene, just say, hey, use the ground material for the ground, use the column material for the column, and those would already all be set up. Yeah, let's try another one. Okay, so we got that one done. We just go back over to the scripting tab, and I'm gonna Control Z this away. Can we get back to our main scene? All right, let's do another one where we ask for something that is a little different. Use Blender's Python API to create a curved vase model with a thickness of 5 millimeters. And let's see if that can create something. And the reason I'm trying this one out is because I recently got a 3D printer, and Blender is not known for having great 3D printer integrations. You can make models for 3D printers this way. However, in my experience, it's not as precise as something like Fusion would be. I consider Blender to be more of like, let's make some artistic 3D prints, and more functional and structural parts are better off in a parametric workflow like Fusion. And so being able to create a vase model would be pretty cool. If it can do this sort of very specifically. So let's try this out, see if it works. And just, I don't know, just experiment with different prompts and see what it can create. I mean, it's not going to be able to create everything. It's not going to be able to create everything very well either. But it could be a great starting place for larger scenes or for background objects or background props. So let's try this out. Still waiting on our request from Claude. Generating the code. Let's see here. Keep it going. Got a response received. It should pop up here any second. While you're waiting, you can play around with your scene. Looks pretty cool. There's our script. It's got 145 lines. Let's insert the code. Take a look at it. Play. There you go. Very artistic looking vase, huh? Let's check the geometry on this. It's all quads. Interestingly, it added a solidify with the thickness of 5 millimeters and a subdivision surface modifier. It's really cool. I would say if this was going to be, a printable model, I would come in here and sort of use proportional editing, kind of expand the base out. The quality on that looks pretty great. This is not exactly what we want for the base. So we're going to have to... Yikes, that looks bad. Did not fill in the base with a face. That's okay. You don't need it. Now we can come in here and I can just add our material. Interesting. Cool. Well, there you go. Try a different material here. That's better. Still some issues with the textures, but that's pretty interesting that I was able to do something like that. And then we can come in here if we wanted to make some adjustments to the thickness. Sort of adjust the thickness just like that. And then before you export this to be 3D printed, you have to come in here and you have to, apply the modifiers in the correct order. I don't need the smooth. And then from here, you can look at the topology. Very interesting. You could also decimate this. For some reason. Oh, I'm in edit mode. That's why. Edit mode. And yeah. Unsubdivide, planar. Regardless. That's a pretty interesting object. A lot of uses, a lot of creative uses that you could use this for. Different scenes. I'm not sure what the limit is on how much text it will generate, how many lines of code, and how complex these scenes could get. Let me try a different one. So this is one I tried with ChatGPT a long time ago. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask Claude to use Blender's Python API to create a accurate model of a trebuchet. Yeah. Before we do that, I'm just going to export this as an STL, and we're going to try to 3D print it and see how that turns out. So 3D print files. This is our test. Well, I hope you learned something with this video and kind of how I have started to use Claude and to generate and create custom plugins for Blender. It's an extremely powerful tool to do a lot of crazy things that I would typically have to rely on other tools for. If you like this video, just hit the like button and subscribe. I'm really enjoying. I crossed over 1,000 subscribers on this channel, so I'm really happy that you guys are watching, and I hope to make longer videos for you to kind of deep dive into some of these new techniques that have been popping up for Blender. Yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys later.